All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for everyone who is joining us on a Sunday morning to have the opportunity to sit down with the amazing Robert Dick. Robert Dick is a world renowned composer and an expert in contemporary flute music. And if you didn't know, he's the inventor of the glissando head joint. He's also winner of the National Flute Association's Lifetime Achievement Award. Robert, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
My pleasure, and good morning, everyone,
And
or
also,
good
we
noon, depending, or good afternoon, wherever you are.
We'd also like to thank Flute Specialists for hosting us today. For anyone who's tuning in live, we are doing a fun little giveaway today. If you're tuning in, give us a comment, say hi, let us know what you're drinking with us this morning or where you're tuning in from. And anybody who comments on our live event today will get entered into a drawing for one of these beautiful mugs signed by Robert Dick himself. So that's extra exciting too. So, Robert, thanks for sharing your time with us today. We'd love to talk a little bit about you and get to know you as a person. So, you are an established and successful composer and performer. So, how has COVID affected somebody like you this year?
Oh boy, COVID-19 has, well, it's been a disaster for me, to put it plain. Um, the first thing that happened was that all of my concerts got canceled, and all of my master classes. I give a number, anywhere from 6 to sometimes 12 or 15 short residencies at colleges and universities and conservatories all around the world, mostly in the States, but everywhere else too. And typically a residency would be 2 or 3 days where I'd give a flute master class, a class for the composers, and a concert concert, and sometimes a talk to the whole music student body on things like making an independent career. Um, Sometimes I even talk to business students. Uh, anyway, all of those little packages are gone. So that was the first thing that happened. Then I got COVID, um, which was no prize. That was an absolutely dreadful experience. I've never felt sicker. Um, Luckily, I didn't have to go to the hospital, but it was close. And the after effects lasted for almost 5 months after I recovered. Um, so, I spent almost half a year struggling to breathe. And that was no fun. So, and then looking ahead, my all of my professional activities, with the exception of online teaching, are gone for the foreseeable future. And so, I'm in the process of trying to reinvent myself as an online entity, not only just sharing as I do for Instagram, but starting to offer courses that people will sign up for and pay, an enrollment fee. Um, and I'm, I'm trying to build up my studio of online students. So if any of you out there would be interested in a lesson, well, you know where to find me. Um, www.robertdick.net. And so now, and you'd be very, very welcome. Now, and so yeah, so COVID-19. Um, Now, there are people who have been hurt far more than me, um, but you know, given the fact that I'm over 65, I have Social Security. So thank you, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Your greatness endures. Now, without that, I would be in real trouble. And so I do have some basic underpinnings, and I do have my students at NYU, um, which is completely online teaching this year, which is fine. Um, and so, you know, you asked me about it, reporting what happened, but I don't feel I'm in a position actually to complain. I need to adjust. I need to make changes. I need to again reimagine myself. But I've been doing that my whole life, um, and you know, and I'm sending all the positive energy I can out to all those, especially the younger professionals just starting their career and seeing doors slammed in their face right and left. And, you know, I spend quite a bit of time in Germany because my children live there. And I see how much better the governments of the European Union are handling this. I have friends in Holland, friends in Germany, friends in France, Italy, all through the European Union. And salaries are supported. They're not full, but they are supported. It's not this horrible system of just being thrown out to fend for yourself and hopefully get unemployment, except that it's not there these days. And Our system has just completely bungled this situation, as had our, for lack of a better word, our quote unquote leadership. So
Well, we are really glad that you were able to recover from COVID and very sorry to
that makes two of us.
Yeah, no kidding. It's
Well, it
wonderful.
makes more than that. And my children are particularly glad about that as well, as is their mom.
I can't imagine. And I'm sorry you went through it, but I'm glad that you came out the other side. That's worth
Yes.
something, I guess.
Well, if you want to make a career in music, one of the things you're going to need to be is durable. And in many senses of that word, um, it's important to take care of yourself physically. If I had not been in good physical shape, COVID could have been much more severe. Um, I am in an age group where, statistics are not in my favor, but I was in much better shape than most people in my age group, doing regular aerobic exercise, which I've been doing for decades, and and then durable in the sense that all of us, no matter how successful we seem, have had to deal with quite a bit of rejection. And, you know, and I'm not saying don't pretend you don't feel it. You know, I mean, as artists, we have to be as close to our feelings as possible. So when something hurts, it does hurt, and don't let anybody talk you out of that. But on the other hand, absorb it, deal with it, and learn from it, and move on. Um, and Just this morning before our broadcast, I was watching one of my heroes, Rafael Nadal, the great tennis player, win the French Open. Yes, for the 13th time. That's mind-boggling. But the thing about Rafa's playing that every musician should pay attention to is his concentration. It is so total. He was not affected by Djokovic's struggles. And when Djokovic got it together and made a run, Rafael just raised the level of his game. And 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 also, there's nobody better than Nadal that no matter what happens, you lose the big, big points. You lose the big, big game. Well, he is able to just move on and totally be there for the next point. And so, you know, as performers, who hasn't had an imperfect moment? That passage you practiced until it was shinier than the sun, right? And falling apart. Now if you stop and mourn, well, the next thing is going to go wrong, and before long, you're in the downward spiral, and so you have to be able to project your mind forward. Listen to the music you're going to play next all the more intently. What's done is done, and it's probably not as bad as you think it was anyway, but it doesn't matter because this is not the time to think about it. Um, you know, and so there's that to learn from. If you are an improviser, certainly you have to be in the now and looking ahead. Um, but improvising and performing composed music are very similar in many ways. They're very different in many ways too, but there's a lot of similarities. And just the whole thing of performance that we all have to do. And if I might offer the number one technique for concentration, sing the music you're playing in your head as you play it. When I play, I hear two things. I hear my flute, of course. There it is again. It's been with me all these years. And then, and I hear me singing it. Now, would it be better if it was, depending on the music, anyone from Pavarotti to, Rod Stewart? Well, yes, but it's me singing it. Because when I hear me sing, things change. When I hear, it would be so glorious to plug in the voice of Nina Simone. Perfect, especially for alto flute. But if I'm listening to Nina, I'm treasuring the experience, but it's not changing my body. It's got to be me. So you need to be singing in your head, and the way to learn to do that is to actually sing. So if you're in school, take advantage and sign up for some voice lessons. You'll be so glad you did.
That's such good
Really.
advice. That makes so much sense. And if you don't mind, could I ask just on the category of picking your brain and getting advice from you? You are undoubtedly one of the world's leading experts on extended
Okay.
techniques.
Now, unfortunately, we're having a little volume issue right now. So can you repeat that question?
Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Can you hear me now?
Sort of. Well, go for it.
All right. People who are watching, I'm going to speak loudly, so hang on for us. Robert, could you tell us a little bit about extended techniques? What are some of your favorites? How does someone get started with extended techniques?
Okay, I couldn't quite hear, but I think what you asked me is what do people do when they'd like to start with extended techniques? Okay, well, one thing you can do is keep in mind I'm here to help you. Um, and there's a whole pedagogy out there. Um, the place to begin would actually be my book, Tone Development Through Extended Techniques, which will help you develop your tone for whatever you want to use it for, classical music, new music, everything. Tone is tone. Um, and and then also I have these etudes flying lessons, and there's a lot of material on YouTube. If you just search for Robert Dick Flute, um, and particularly start with the 3 videos on throat tuning. Um, and throat tuning, the first thing you'll do when you start practicing it is bad days are simply going to go away. There's no reason for anyone to have them. It's all been missing information. The information has been found. And, when I was very young, I appointed myself to go on a secret mission to solve this problem because it bothered me so much. I mean, like if anybody can sound good ever, well, why can't we all sound good all the time? There isn't some mystery little deity up there deciding, like, well, it's Sunday, so Alyssa, sorry about that, but Susan out there, you're golden today, but watch out for tomorrow. So it baffled me. I would finish practicing, sounding my best, and why was it a mystery what was going to happen when I opened a flute case the next day? And particularly if I was opening it at an audition or before a concert. When the pressure was on, that's when, tone seemed to get frightened and scurry away and hide in dimension Q. And so I did figure it out by actually studying acoustics, and I did the work. I felt my brain was going to, I had to keep my head very straight or my brain would pour out one of my ears. And but I figured it out, and it was actually easy. And it was that we had all ignored the vocal cords. We had all been told, just open your throat. It's not true. We need to be silently singing as we play. The throat and vocal cords need to be consistently active. Ask any saxophone player; they actually knew about it all along. And don't be too proud to ask a saxophone player. A lot of them are cool people. Now, I'm a flutist. I won't talk to a saxophonist. you know. And so there's a lot of pedagogical material, and importantly, don't start from the position of, I don't know anything about this. You know a lot. If you've gotten to the point playing the flute where you want to explore extended techniques, or if you, suddenly need to play a piece that has got some new stuff in it, well, it's flute playing. Now, when you're playing one note, here's a note, or 3. Well, each and every one of those 4 notes I just played, they're all flute notes. And we know how to play flute notes. So you know a lot more than you think you do. But there are many important things about how the flute works that most flutists are not familiar enough with. And there's a myth out there that if you think too much, it will make you less expressive. And if we could get on the phone and call the afterlife, we could ask Eddie Van Halen about that. the guy who invented so much of guitar playing, if we could get on the phone and call Jimi Hendrix. Um, well, these guys were thinkers, and it didn't make them feel anything less at all. It intensified their feeling. Again, in my pantheon of heroes, Leonardo da Vinci is, chairman of the board, and a great philosopher, a great scientist, researcher, curious about everything, and what an artist. So that's the kind of person I aspire to be, and I think, you know, I don't go around giving people advice if they don't ask, because that's obnoxious. But well, it is. Um, and but but when asked, that's what I would say, um, is that the artist is a complete person. We're talking about emotions, we're talking about intellect, we're talking about the body. Everything is involved, and it's a myth to think that, well, if you think, you just won't feel. I mean, I know people who believe that are doing themselves a great disservice. Um, I mean, doesn't it make you feel embarrassed to say that? There, you're feeling something. So, and so anyway, back to extended techniques, and then the willingness to learn and the willingness to be a beginner. No matter how advanced you are, you know, whether you can, whip off, your all-state pieces with your eyes closed, and congratulations if you've done all that work. But when you're starting something that's adding a dimension, very often we need to start at step one. And if there's a quote unquote secret to my success, it's been my willingness to start at step one again and again and again. I've been to square one so often that, I've got a chair there, a little table, a coffee pot. I mean, I'm at home in square one because I spent a lot of time there. So I hope that helped.
Yes, very much. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. So, Robert, let me ask you this. Some flutists, here, let me get this closer. Some flutists experience being required to play the same standard pieces over and over again. What do you have to say about that?
Okay. Again, thank you, Beeline, for choosing to mute our host. But if it's like we have to play the same music over and over again, well, first of all, um, think about your opportunity to change the way you learn. And and this is a very important message from Thomas Ninefinger, like who was teaching graduate students, and the best flute teacher I met in my life by magnitudes. And Tom would say, well, look, you learned this piece maybe in junior high school for the first time. I mean, I learned lots of the Bach sonatas when I was 12 for the first time. I got to start the flute quite young. And well, the interpretation you worked out then might not have much to do with the person you are today. So how about just looking at the piece really fresh as a musician first, then the flute. And at every opportunity, we want to reorder the how we approach learning, because all too often it's flute, 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 music. flute, 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 flute. So, and it's got to be music, 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 and because thinking about the music, and it's such an important thing, is the practice without the flute in your hand. Put it down. It's going to get in your way when you're thinking about music. It's distracting. You know, it's so easy to get hung up on some note that didn't speak properly. Um, and and it's an easy excuse to avoid the harder questions of music. So, and think about how would this music go if playing the flute was no problem at all? What would it feel like to hear the music? Think about the music from the listener's perspective, not just yours. But your perspective is important too. What's it feel like to hear the piece? What's it important like to play the piece? How can I experience communicating what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking? And then I'll have a much clearer idea of what to practice towards when I pick the flute up. And in that way, when you revisit a great piece again and again, you'll find more and more and more things. The Prokofiev Sonata, the Hindemith Sonata, things like that. When you are revisiting a mediocre piece, well, then you're revisiting yourself as a learner. And, we have to accept the reality and not pretend that so much of the standard flute repertoire is anywhere from mediocre to just garbage. So, and there are in our repertoire some great pieces, but they're not that many. And so, and that's why it's also so important to search beyond the standard repertoire. When people talk about the golden age of the flute being at the turn of from the 1900s to the 20th century, that's nonsense. That was a bunch of junk for the most part. The golden age of the flute is right now. More composers are considering the flute as an extremely important central instrument than ever before. And participate in the present. You are alive right now, and you want to be part of your own time. I mean, how many times have you said about somebody, oh, they're living in the past? Well, as a musician, you don't want to be one of those folks. I mean, we need to know the past. We need to really know the past, but we need to participate in the present and anticipate the future.
Awesome. That's beautiful. That's really great. Thank you so much for that advice.
Well, my pleasure and my privilege.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Robert, for taking some time to sit down with us this morning. It's been very cool to hear your advice and hear some of your suggestions for flute. Thank you again to Flute Specialists for hosting us today.
And yes, some of my favorite people at Flute Specialists. So thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Robert Johnson, for making all this go. And well, I look forward to another Flute Espresso at some future moment.
Absolutely. Everybody who's tuned in, if you haven't dropped a comment yet, please do feel free. Anybody who comments will get entered into a drawing for a giveaway of one of these gorgeous mugs. The inside's orange, by the way, signed by Robert Dick himself. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and drop us a comment. Otherwise, thank you all so much for attending. We hope you have a lovely and safe weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, take care. And one of the things I like about the Flute Specialist mug is that if you're left-handed, like me, you get to see the Flute Specialist logo. So it works for right-handed people and left-handed people. So I don't know if anyone was thinking about it at the time it was decided, but it works, and I appreciate it.
An all-inclusive mug.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, take care and have a great day.
You too. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.